The legal voters of the Town of Jamaica, Vermont are hereby notified and warned to meet at the town offices located at 28 Town Office Road in Jamaica on Tuesday, March 31st, 2026 at 7 p.m. for an informational meeting on the following articles. Article 1, shall the voters of the Town of Jamaica agree to give authority to the Board of the West River Modified Union Education District to close the Jamaica Village School such that the Jamaica Village School would not be used for an elementary school or provision of direct educational service by the district to students, with the closings happening on or before June 30th, 2026. Article 2, if the voters of the Town of Jamaica vote in the affirmative to Article 1, then shall the voters of the Town of Jamaica also vote to purchase the Jamaica Village School from the district for $1 pursuant with the terms of the Articles of Agreement approved by the electorate of the Jamaica Town School District on March 17th, 2017. So, we're going to start this off. Jessica's going to start off with some opening comments. Then Drew and Dana are going to discuss Article 1. There'll be questions and answers. I would ask that we try to keep this room as terrible acoustics, so try to keep the conversations to a minimum. If you have a question when the question and answer period, just state your name and then ask your question so we know who's asking the question. Once they're done with their presentation with Article 1, we'll move to Article 2. Siobhan and Jason are going to come up and they have a presentation talking about potential uses for the school, and then there'll be question and answers around that, and then Jessica will have an open question and answer just for other things.
Yeah.
So I'll hand it over to Jessica.
And then there are seats. There's not even one right in front. First of all, thanks. This is such a great turnout. There was a last minute scramble to put some more chairs in the room, and I was like, really? And look at that. We filled it up. I'm thrilled. That's amazing. No, that really, I have to say, that's such a testament. And so many faces are familiar to me and familiar to each other. It's just, great.
There's a chair.
Betsy.
More chairs.
Chairs.
You are in demand. Oh, a pen? Do you need it or?
Never mind, there's only one left.
But no, there's one here.
Sorry. Now that everyone knows I'm here.
Do you need a pen? Do you need another?
I can get that.
We're here, this is an obligatory meeting, so anytime that there is a vote by Australian ballot, municipalities are required to have a closed hearing. We're calling it an informational session, that's really what it is. Because there's no ability to ask questions or have a debate on the date of the vote, like we do when we have a floor vote at town meeting. But in addition, first of all, I want to just thank Drew and Dana because they've done this once before. They did have a meeting and I see some of the faces that were there, which was truly excellent. And I think that really set the tone for the level of discourse on this topic, with Drew taking position as the chair of that board. And then, the difficult decisions that had to be made as the budget was built this year, several iterations. There was just a level of transparency and discourse that was fresh and I would say deeper, and also just more comprehensible for me. I just was so able to follow all the points really well at the meeting, so I want to thank you for that. And so we have the benefit of the two of them here today to address Article 1. In addition, we of course automatically put Article 2 on the hearing because if the school is going to be closed, the select board felt very strongly that the town have an opportunity to decide what happens to that property. It had been owned by the property, it was contributed to the school district in 2018, roughly, as part of the most recent district reorganization. So we have the ability to take that for essentially for nothing. And in terms of the structure of today's hearing and the decisions that were taken by the select board over the last 3 weeks, because it's not really been a long period of time that we had to kind of put this all together, was that folks were saying, how do I vote whether or not to take the school back when I have absolutely no idea what that means? And we're not going to be able to answer that definitively today. What we're going to do is a subcommittee of the board, really just a group of volunteers finding their own time, put together a presentation, did some initial research, and a lot of ideation, also just heard ideas from a lot of folks in town. What are some of the potential uses beyond the obvious, which is market and sell the property, take the cash, and then have it back on the grand list and have it generate property taxes. Are there other ideas? So they're gonna present on that, risks and rewards and cost benefits. But let me just share with you that if the decision is to take the school back, the very next step is that the select board will then do an organized examination of exactly that issue by commissioning a highest and best use. And I think, Robert, you might be talking about that, but if not, I just wanted to make sure that was out there, that folks would understand that this is, the ideas and research to date, but we would be retaining the services of an engineering firm consultant that would actually give us, you know, some very strong insights there. And then we would probably have another town vote. And that would be after, you know, good discussion with the select board. Hopefully people with this level of participation, come on in, there's more seats.
Sign in.
There's one right in the front. I'll sign in for Erica. Oh, no, yeah, I'll sign in. With that, I wanna, in addition to thanking Drew and Dana and the board, I wanna thank the subcommittee of the select board. Thank you, all of you, and you're gonna meet them all today. And as well as other people who came and participated and gave ideas. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Drew, and I'll just point out that the budget for next week's vote, because next week's vote is these two articles that we're warning, but it's also the school budget. So that's all here in this book.
And if we run out, I have more in the back.
Yes.
So I'll get more.
If that's
After the meeting, come see me if you don't
yeah,
get one.
yeah.
Karen, yes.
Also, this is the videotape will be
Yes.
available as soon as possible.
Correct. It is streaming actually. We had decided to stream it after all. So some people aren't on streaming. But yes, BCTV is here. They're recording the meeting, and it will be on tomorrow. I will get it up on the website tomorrow later in the day.
And
So-
it's streaming on the select
It's
board.
streaming on this. Yeah. Anyone who's anyone who.
So it's on
Yeah,
Zoom.
but it's on Zoom right now on the select board meeting. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if people want to get in the text your friends, tell them come on. It's on the website.
All right. Thank you, Drew. I'm gonna
All right.
hand it over now.
So also next week, the school district annual meeting is another opportunity should you want to come down Monday evening, 7 o'clock. So after the presentation this evening, if there's still questions, certainly grab us before we leave or come to that meeting and we can get you more information. So just a little bit
Where is that?
at Leland and Gray. So for those that don't know me, Drew Hazelton, obviously a Jamaica resident. I've been on the school board for quite a while. In this particular year, I have chaired the West River Education District Board through the budget process. Dana's been on the board with us for
5-6 years.
quite a while, so we've
Yeah.
been kind of watching and learning about education funding and some of the challenges that we're facing around education funding. I think it's important that I tell a little bit of a story about how we got to this point, just for context, so people understand. If I confuse you, I am more than willing to stop and answer the question, so don't necessarily wait for me to finish before you raise your hand. So education funding in Vermont is complicated. The formula that we use in order to determine what the tax rates are in town are not simple. In fact, if they were simple and we only paid for the costs directly one for one, we wouldn't be sitting here, okay? But unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, we have a statewide education funding formula that we don't control much of. So through all the iterations of education legislation, we've changed everything from the way that we count students to the way that we assess property values and carry those over, as well as a multiplier called the yield. And I'll kind of explain all those pieces as we go through. So this started a long time ago. So people that have been in Jamaica for many years know that there was a consolidation from schools that were out in the outskirts and the villages down to a single school in Jamaica for a period of time, and then we got forced into merging as student enrollments dropped into another, and we, in the process of that, entered into a couple different agreements. One was with Leland and Gray as part of the Union High School District. So that happened sometime, I think it was in the 70s-ish. So that agreement bound us to the sending our children to Leland and Gray for high school. So as legislation changed and we were looking at merging school districts, since we were already stuck in the high school, it seemed to make sense to just be all in that district, because there's no way for us to get out of the high school, because the only way out of those districts, still without some sort of legislative change, is to have all of the other towns vote to let us leave. And there's, unfortunately, I don't think any real probability that all the other towns would let us leave, because it simply would mean their taxes would go up. That being said, if you're not watching what's happening in Montpelier right now on maps and redistricting, I think you should be. And it's outside of the purview of this, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, because you guys gave me the floor. Right now, the Senate is drawing maps, and I know that I've heard from many people in Jamaica saying that they wish we were aligned with the Burn-Burton area and not the Leland and Gray area. Right now, the current map that's in the Senate has a line drawn around Dover and Wardsboro, and sends them all over. They're getting redistricted into the Burn-Burton area, and there's this little carve out for Jamaica that's getting sucked into the Brattleboro region. And as Dana and I were talking about today, the only real way to get from Dover and Wardsboro to Burn-Burton is to drive through Jamaica. Just putting it out there that there may be some logic here. So, as community members, if you think that there's something to that and you want to contact your senators, it may be a good time to do so.
We'll give you their emails.
Can I just say, we have our two senators coming in April sometime to talk about Act 181. So it's a good time to talk to
Time to talk to them.
them about that.
Because the act that some people in Jamaica tried to make to move, that we were unable to do, the legislature with one, pen stroke can do all on their own. So anyway, I'm just putting it out there. If that's something, and I've heard from a lot of people that they want us to move that direction, there's nothing we can do at our local board or really in our town to do that. But if you feel strongly, now is the time to speak to your senators and representatives about that. So the education funding formula is what we're stuck with. So we're stuck in this district. We have West River Education District that sits within the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. Inside of the Supervisory Union, we have the West River Education District. We have the River Valley Education District, which is Wardsboro and Dover. Up until, technically we still have Marlboro School District, though they did vote to close. So they're going to be a non-operating district. We have Wyndham and we have Stratton, which are both non-operating districts. So the way that works is that all of those school districts fall under the administrative authority of the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union. What has happened over the last, I'll say, 10, 15 years is that legislative changes has continued to increase the responsibility and the authority of the supervisory union and decrease that of your local school board. So for those people that were on the board 20 years ago, you got to hire and fire and evaluate principals. Does not happen that way anymore. You got to choose how many educators were in your building, and you got to choose and look at the number of different positions, whether it was social work or special education. None of that exists anymore.
You can decide healthcare.
You could actually negotiate healthcare costs with your teachers. None of that exists anymore. That is all centrally located in the supervisory union. So depending on, the supervisory union has two budgets. Depending on which budget, West River Education, meaning you, is paying between 65% of that total administrative burden, or between 53 and 65% of the administrative burden that's being shifted to us by the supervisory union.
And that may go up.
It not may go up, that is going to go up. And I am going to explain that because I think that's really important. You will never get to vote on that budget. Just to be clear, that budget is not coming in front of the taxpayers. That budget is approved by the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union Board, which is made up of representatives of the school districts, but it does not go in front of the voters. My personal opinion is that's part of the reason why education funding is and spending is out of control. Because I think we've distanced the people paying the bill too far from the bill. So that is my personal opinion, not that of the board. Yeah.
Quick question, if we pay 60-something% of the SU budget, do we have 60-something% of the representation on the SU board?
Not exactly how that works. You would think, but that's not exactly how it works. And it depends on which budget it is. And so Dana brought up a good point. So, for example, with Marlboro closing, now they're non-operational. Jamaica's bill will automatically go up next year just because of that action, because they are now a non-operating school, which means they're going to pay a lower percentage. We're going to have to pick up the difference. Because if you think for a minute that there's going to be a reduction in expenses, like I think that's unreasonable, right?
Can you just clarify what a non-operating district is? Like if we don't have a school, how are we still operational?
Because we merged with Newfane, Brookline, Townsend, and
Brookline.
Newfane, Brookline, and Townsend. So,
Wyndham somewhere.
yep.
So does
So-
Marlboro not have students?
So Marlboro voted to close their school completely, and they will be tuitioning all of their kids out, much like Stratton does. Wyndham voted to close their school, and they're 100% tuition last year. So they're non-operating, which means they have a smaller share of the supervisory union budget. So this year, and now this has been going on for several years, okay? This is not just a one-year thing. So this year, what's happened is we get an assessment from the supervisory union. That is basically the start of our budgeting process. It's a bill that we're getting sent as our to our board. Once they tell us what the number is, that's what we have to pay. This year's assessment from the supervisory union to West River Education, which is, again, you guys own 65% of, increased by $749,000. That's where we started this conversation. Now, not all of that is a direct result of something bad that happened at the supervisory union or something, increases in cost. So a lot of that has to do with changes in the way that the federal government provides grants for education, specifically around special education and some services. So because of a reduced revenue, along with increased expenses, because the costs all went up, healthcare for employees went up, contractual wages went up, that budget went up significantly. The cost that was pushed over onto us locally was $749,000.
For Jamaica or for the district?
For the West River District.
Okay.
Say, the West River District is responsible for 65% of that.
Right.
The part that is really important for everybody to understand is the supervisory union also bought down the tax rate by 1.1 million. So really, that total increase in cost was about $1.9 million. There is no more money in the supervisory union to buy down tax rates in the future. They spent all of the reserves, and those reserves were built up during the COVID years when we had all that federal money coming in to buy down the tax rate this year. So next year, when we go into the budget, we know that we're starting where we are right now, and we know that we're starting over $1 million in the hole, and that doesn't include increases to staff health insurance. The supervisory union has 89 full-time employees, so when health insurance goes up, it hits pretty hard. It does not include increases to wages. So for this year alone, you're seeing a $749,000 direct impact to our budget, and that's with buying down the debt. So this is something that has happened now for the last 3 or 4 years. It's not the first year. So we started having our budget conversations early. One of the things that I said when I took over as chair is I wanted the process to be open, I wanted the process to be transparent, and I wanted the public to have access to all of the information. So we worked on redesigning the website, and I think we did a pretty good job
What you
at
could.
getting as much information out as we could.
Right.
So we started this process early, and we started looking at what is the impact. going to be to all of the communities. Where we started that conversation, again, we knew what the SU budget was. We started that conversation looking at what would have been probably about a 30% tax increase in Jamaica for your education spending. All right, well, why is there a 30%? So that 30% has to do with a couple different factors. It's in the formula. One of those factors is our per pupil, our number of equal or weighted pupils. So most all of us in the room, if you walked into a classroom and you wanted to know how many pupils were there, you'd count the number of kids running around, and that's the number of pupils you would have. In Vermont's education system, that's not how it works at all. All kids have different weights. So some kids are worth 1, some kids are worth half, some kids are worth 2. And in the process of doing our budget, the state counted the children in our district. I think it was 4 different times, came up with 4 different numbers.
4 different.
So we were fortunate this year that they counted the same number of kids, but came up with a higher number this year, which helped our tax rate a little bit. So if you look at our per pupil spending, our per pupil spending is 16,000 and change. We'll call it 17,000 even.
17,000.
That is not per student. We have roughly half as many students as we do pupils. So really, the total spending per kid in our district is around $32,000, $33,000. Okay, I think that's really important for you guys to understand. So the weights, we don't control those locally. Okay, we don't get to, they keep telling us education spending is a local thing. Except for when they build a formula, we don't control any of the aspects of. So we don't get to control that. So then they come up with the yield. The yield is a multiplier that is utilized in the education funding formula to ensure that the education fund receives enough money in order to fund education across the state. The yield is estimated in December, provided to school boards for budgeting purposes, and it doesn't get finalized until sometime in May at the end of the legislative session. So we don't know what your actual tax rates are going to be. So we are now asking everybody in the state to vote on education funding, but we cannot tell you what you're actually voting to spend because the yield has not yet been set. If the yield goes up, the tax rate goes down. There's been some indication that the yield may go up. If the yield goes up, then the tax rates that are printed in this book may go down. The yield is not controlled here locally. If we were fiscally responsible and we did everything right, and then the big school districts in the northern part of the state decided to put in an extra football stadium or redo their turf, then the yield would be affected and our taxes would go up. Okay, that's how the system is designed. We don't control that. That's the next factor. The other thing, as we go down through the tax rate, is our CLA, or a common level of appraisal. Anybody that has looked at the document says, well, Jamaica's common level of appraisal is, I don't know, 50%. 48%.
But the state didn't like that.
48%. And that becomes a multiplier in our education funding formula. So the state came up with a modified CLA, and they picked a number, 70.33. So now we have a multiplier on a multiplier that goes into this formula that then multiplies against the yield, which we don't control, based on a number of students that we also can't count. That's how your education funding is determined. So I want to just frame that. Does everybody understand clearly how that works? Yes.
I think we need to secede.
So if you don't understand it, that puts you in the same position as all the legislators that are right now discussing. But that's how the system works. So if you're trying to look through this document that's in here and go, wait a minute, none of this makes sense, it's because it doesn't, okay? So what I can tell you about is we wanted, as the board, what we wanted to do was to be as fiscally responsible as we could, having the minimal amount of impact on student learning that we could. So we started by looking at every single line item in our budget in order to try to come up with what things are 100% essential, is there wiggle room, and we challenged the administration to come back to us with a list of things in a priority order that we could cut from the budget in order to bring that 30% anticipated tax number down, that had the most minimal impact on student learning. So they brought a whole bunch of things forward, and we wrestled with a lot of things. We heard from parents and teachers and students themselves over the course of about 5 months. And one of the things that came up was that it is expensive to keep Jamaica Village School open with the number of students that are there. It became one of the topics relatively early. And one of the challenges that we had, and the board, again, we discussed this very openly in open session, was that we had already asked the town of Jamaica whether they wanted to close the school or not, and we got a clear no vote a year ago. So putting it back on the ballot didn't feel right. But not putting it on the ballot and increasing taxes 30% also did not feel right. So in my opinion, as the representative from Jamaica, and Dana agreed, we wanted to put it back in your hands, right? We think this is I want to be, you guys should make the decision as to what happens. So that was one of the items that we looked at. And the reason why we looked at it is because what we were told was that the students that are currently at Jamaica in the preschool program could be absorbed into the Townsend program, meaning that the convenience is less, the educational opportunities would be minimal. And given that the other things that we had on the list, it was not as impactful as cutting some of the other programs that we would have had to cut in order to get below a threshold. And I should have explained that.
The threshold.
So during COVID, there was a suspension on the penalty for spending too much money per pupil. That suspension has stopped, and now there is a penalty. So there's a spending threshold. And I should have mentioned this before. If we spend over a certain dollar amount per student, the state taxes us 2 to 1. So it's a 100% penalty. Okay, I don't know what loan shark you go to. Nobody other than the state of Vermont can get away with a 100% penalty if you go over. But it's a 100% penalty for every dollar we go over their threshold. So the board goal was to get under it. Like, our taxes are high enough, we don't want to pay double taxes on every dollar. So that was the threshold component.
We don't want to give away money.
We already give too much of it away. So we went through, we started looking at all the programs. And the cost of keeping the building open in Jamaica and the cost of keeping the staff in Jamaica was a couple $100,000. And out of a $12, $13 million budget, it's not a lot. But when we're trying to get below a threshold and we're getting taxed 2 to 1, it does matter. We looked at other things. We looked at all kinds of other things. I will tell you the one thing, and I've said it in many public meetings, that we did not look at, the one thing that I voted against, the one thing that I'm still not happy with, is that we did not ask the superintendent's office and the supervisory union board did not challenge the superintendent's budget at all. In fact, it was passed in under an hour from when it was presented until it was passed. I was the only no vote. And that is because I believe we should be looking at administrative costs before student programming. That's a personal opinion.
We didn't get a line item breakdown of that budget, did we? You asked for it.
There is line items in that budget. It's very difficult to understand what is in that budget because of the way that budget is constructed. It is very difficult to determine what is absolutely essential and what is not. So I really wanted to spend some time there. The supervisory union board did not. My one vote did not sway that. So we got assessed. So that's where we started with $750,000-ish in the hole.
So before you go on,
Yep.
you've just told us all the things that we have absolutely no control over.
Mm-hmm.
All the things we can't do other than call our senators or get involved in some larger legislative process, which is maybe spitting in the wind, but we should absolutely do it. So we have no option, and I'm not talking about close the school or don't close the school, but we have no option to impact this budget in any way.
So the option you have, if you vote in favor of the budget moves forward. If the taxpayers look at this budget, again, I trust the will of the taxpayers, and you go, nah, I'm not feeling so good about this budget, and you vote against it, then the school board has to take it up and come up with a different plan. So if the, if this is,
We're voting on next week.
the budget you're
Yes.
voting on next week, if you get through this meeting and you get through the informational meeting and you're like,
Don't like it.
I support that, then you vote yes. If you're like, send it back to the drawing boards, then you vote no.
Okay.
And then the board will have to take up those,
But just to clarify, that's just the school budget. It's not voting no against the supervisory budget.
correct. So and this is one of my pet peeves, is that it does, so the supervisory union budget gets set first. So the supervisory union budget was voted and approved before we even got to start talking about what the local impact was gonna be. So when we realized that we had to make deep cuts, there was no going back. Last year I fought and kicked and screamed, and I got them to reopen the supervisory union budget. And I can tell you that didn't work well, because I think simply to spite me, they increased the budget when they reopened it. So
Yeah, they did.
they did. So this year, I did not fight to reopen the budget after they closed it, because it was clear what happened last year when I pushed hard to get them to open it.
Drew, can I ask this question? So I keep hearing two things. So the school district will absorb our preschoolers in Townsend. But then I hear there is no preschool except in Jamaica, so there's no preschool in Townsend. So that seems impossible to me.
Okay.
And then I also understand there's a cap of 24 kids in kindergarten in Townsend for next year.
Yep.
So if they have 24 kids and we have 10 that don't have a spot, they can't absorb them. So how are they planning to absorb a preschool they don't have and absorb kids they're not space for?
I can't answer this question. So the board's conversation, and we'll talk about things that the board has not discussed. By the way, I'm putting it all on the table. If people don't like it, then get angry.
I'm
The
not
board's
gonna-
conversation. So first of all, Townsend does have a preschool. Townsend actually was the first school in our district to have preschool, and they've had a preschool for a very long time. So Townsend does have a preschool.
So is the preschool supported by the West River Education?
It is.
Okay, so it's
Yep,
funds, it's
it is.
out of the education budget for pre-K.
Correct. So
Okay.
West River Education right now has two preschools. We have one located at Jamaica Village School, and we have one located at Townsend. We do not have a preschool in Newfane. There was conversation a year ago by the board about the possibility of putting a preschool in Newfane. We decided not to do that, and that conversation has not come back up. And based on the fiscal reality, I think it probably, I can't promise what they're gonna bring up, but I don't think there's any possibility. So a couple of other things to understand about preschool students. Preschool students, despite what you believe, and despite looking in a room, they only count as 4/10 of a child, okay?
According to the state.
So I don't know if you ever tried chasing one of them around, but apparently they're only 4/10 of a kid.
I'd say there were 4 times the.
Yes. Again, the state comes up with these rules that creates this where a preschool kid only counts as 4/10 of a child, which means when they pay us, so we send the money to the state, when they reimburse us for the services, they'll only give us 4/10 of what they give us for a kindergartner. Even though that same preschool kid has the same services, the same teacher, the same
Same food,
right?
same everything.
So that's part of the problem. So we have been told that the classroom in Townsend can handle 24 preschool students based on the state regulations for size. We've been provided information that based on the current and projected enrollment, for next year, that all of the students that are seeking service will be able to get service, whether 3 or 4. That being said, it is very difficult to know where preschool children are going to go because preschool is not required in Vermont. You don't have to register your preschool kid like you do your kindergarten. So we don't have great data. If you're a parent of a preschool kid, there's also another program that you can take advantage of. So all preschool children or all preschool kids, whether they go to if they decide to go to a private preschool, get, is it 14 hours? 10 hours? Okay, 10 hours.
10 hours.
At a private preschool that is funded through the school district, through the state. So many families choose to send their preschool kids to private preschools. So even though we have a total number of children that we believe are eligible, we also don't know how many of those are going to private preschool. So based on the information the board has received, we've been told that we have the capacity to absorb all of those kids in Townsend.
So what happens if they're not able to?
Then students would not have that opportunity and they would be forced to seek preschool services through a private provider.
First come, first serve.
And what happened last night at the meeting?
So, there were questions last night about preschool and what that looked like. There was indication from the administration that we were not going to be able to provide 3-year-old preschool. As a board member, that is not my understanding.
Can I give my understanding of that?
Yeah, go ahead.
That I believe it will be the same as it was this year at Townsend. That I don't know the exact numbers, but they will offer a certain number of slots to 4-year-olds. If all of those slots fill, there will not be spots for 3-year-olds. But that is what happened at Townsend this year, and this year there are 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds at Townsend.
I have a question which might seem like I'm being funny, because sometimes I like to do that, and I mean this dead serious. If we have no school and people don't move here with children, and we have no children, do we still pay this amount of money, even though we literally do not use the services of the school?
Yes. Yep. Yes. Yep.
This might be trivial, but in my brain, like, how many preschoolers are currently enrolled in Townsend and how many teachers do they have over there? Because a classroom of 24 preschoolers is too many for like 3
All right,
teachers.
just for the record, a classroom of 2 preschoolers is way more than I can have. So, like, there is no way. So just because, Katie is the current kindergarten teacher. I walked down last year to her classroom to say hello one day. And I walked in the room, I looked around, and I'm like, you know what? I'll take a bus accident any day over this classroom. Yes, I cannot give them enough credit for the work they do. And so I don't have any expertise around whether, so we've been told that the space will hold. I don't know whether the staff, mental health can handle 24 kids in a room.
How many are currently there?
Currently how many are in Townsend?
14 students.
14.
And there
are 12 here, so that's
And a lot more
26.
coming.
A lot more coming? That'd be good.
There's been a couple families that moved into town that, I gave out 2 library cards 2 days ago that the kid that wasn't quite preschool age,
So.
I know that they're here, it's just, like you said, they have options, so what are they gonna do?
So here's something else. So I again, my understanding and the conversations that we've had at the board level are a couple things, and I just want to put them out there. And I cannot promise the future actions of the board. I can just tell you where we've been, and that is if the town of Jamaica votes no to closing the school, that we would. So all right, back up. All the votes happen next Tuesday. Okay, so. In the budget.
Wednesday.
Yes, let's correct that. Next Wednesday.
That's Wednesday. Show up Wednesday.
Yeah, show up Wednesday. Okay. So the conversation we've had at the board, and I'm not saying that this won't change because things seem to be changing by the minute. The conversation we've had at the board is that in the current proposed budget that you'll be voting on next Wednesday, it does not include keeping Jamaica Village School open. If you approve the budget and do not approve closing of the school, then the school district will deficit spend and keep the school open, and we'll have to fix that problem next year. If you vote the budget down and and vote against closing of the school, then that will be incorporated into the revised budget that the board would have to work on. But if the taxpayers approve the budget but don't allow the school to close, we don't have to reopen the budget. We would just be forced to deficit spend, which we're allowed to do based on the vote, and that would get rolled over into next year. We did maintain enough fund balance in the West River budget to absorb the operating cost of JVS should that be the outcome of your vote.
So we wouldn't have to pay that threshold.
We would not be double taxed on that because it would come out of the, we would have to, it'd be a deficit spending and we'd have to fill it in with fund balance.
Right, but I think it's important to understand this is not binary. It doesn't mean that if we don't vote to close the school, there will be a pre-K in Jamaica Village School.
The board members that I've talked to understand that that is what the board has discussed. What I heard last night is that from the administration that they may have a different plan. So I just want to be clear, like, if I can speak for me as a voter and as a member of this board, if the town of Jamaica votes no, then I will 100% push forward to keep the school open with the preschool in it the way it is.
And will we find ourselves in this exact same spot in 1 year? Like we did last year?
You will so you may be, so it depends. Back to what's going on in Montpelier. So I talked to Representative Sibilia literally on my way here, and I said, Laura, what do you think? And her answer was, don't close your school. That's what she said. Like very abrupt, very direct.
Did she say why?
She, based on what she believed, what is going on in Montpelier with education, she's like, that's the same advice I'm giving Dover and Wardsboro as they work through their challenges over there. She's like, I would give you the same thing. I'm like, well, will you get on the meeting tonight and say that? She's like, I'm not sure if I'll be able to. I'm like, well, can I quote you? Is she on there?
I don't know, Laura, are you on there?
No.
But that was exactly what she told me, literally on the way here. So I don't know what's happening in Montpelier.
Without an explanation for why?
Well, because there's so much activity happening in Montpelier around education right now. Yes.
So with Montpelier being involved, that being said, I believe at one point we were told that the supervisory unions were going to be consolidated.
Should we?
So part of the maps that they're putting out, so we have had, we're probably up to 10 or 12 different maps that have come out.
But there's
Two.
Now there's two.
Now we're down to 2 currently.
Right.
So they keep revising these maps, which would consolidate districts.
What's that mean then?
So it theoretically is consolidating governance, but what we have not actually talked about is removing, staff. So as a volunteer board member, I get $1,200 a year as a stipend. So by eliminating a whole bunch of us, that's not going to make a big difference. So from a governance perspective, they're talking about consolidating governance. I have yet to hear them talk about eliminating actual real overhead. So that's my concern when I look at these proposals. It's like, okay, so you eliminated 4 school boards.
Right.
But what we did at that point is we moved the people that are making decisions about your money further yet away from the people that are paying the bill.
What does that mean as far as given the whole, in our districts and whatnot, that would you take one, like the supervisory union down here needs to meet up with another one? People would lose whatever to give back to our kids.
So right now, the most recent version has us merging with the Brattleboro district.
Right. As far as supervisory unions go.
As far as supervisory unions, the Senate version has Wyndham Central with Wyndham Southeast and Wyndham Southwest, which is the Twin Valley area.
Yes.
They're shooting for regional high schools around CTEs, career centers, career tech centers. Brattleboro.
Right.
The House version has just Wyndham Central with Wyndham Northeast, which is the Bellas Falls. And no,
Oh, welcome.
Can we hear Laura?
Can we hear her?
Hi. Oh, yes.
Hey Laura, I just told them your very abrupt version of what you told me about closing your school, but they wanted to hear from you.
And why?
Sorry, hold on, I'm plugged in trying to juice. So I'm sorry, what is the question?
I just want you to share with them what you told me about whether we should close the school or not.
Okay, so this is what I said to Dover and Wardsboro when I went and spoke with them earlier this year. I said, with everything that is in transition right now, and with the responsible, good decisions that communities are trying to make, that is resulting in a public elementary school desert forming in the western half of Windham County, that I thought it was important for them not to close a building this year and to wait and see how things worked. So that is what I said to Dover and Wardsboro. I think you have a lot of opportunity with that building. I'm worried. I'm worried about public school deserts, elementary school deserts. And I am also worried about the ability that our communities have had to have larger conversations. I don't think we are meaning collectively to create public elementary school deserts in the western half of Windham County. And so perhaps if we are able to have larger conversations, perhaps we will make other decisions. I do think in the case of Wardsboro and Dover, I definitely think that there was room for some budget adjustments and some realignment of the buildings and, of staff, et cetera. But now I'll just keep going. That's, I believe, what I said to you, Drew.
Thank you.
Laura, can you explain to folks who may not know what a school desert is, a public school desert?
Sure. So, and I've posted this on my website. There's a picture outside of my office where I work when the legislature's not in session of the Windham region. I work for a regional development corporation, and I have been staring at it and thinking about all of the small elementary schools, public elementary schools that have been closing. And there were 3 more this year that there was discussion about them potentially closing: Wardsboro, Marlboro, and Reedsboro. And at one point I said, you know what, I'm gonna actually draw lines on this map and start looking and seeing where there are geographically where we have already closed public elementary schools in the western half of Windham County. And, those were really difficult decisions. And I really respect the communities that wrestled so difficultly and the supervisory unions. But those conversations have been so small. And there are a number of public elementary schools that have already closed. There are, after this year, there will be 3 public elementary schools on the western side of Windham County. It will be Wardsboro, Dover, and Wilmington. And, much of the West River Valley is on the eastern side, on the bottom part of Route 30. And so up in the mountains, that's what we're looking at. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Real quick too,
Yes.
there's a link to Laura's site that I just put on the Jamaica town website. So if you want to go look at her site and you don't know how to get there, there's a link on our website now to get to that.
Can I ask another question? If the school building if we vote to keep the school open and the school itself only uses a certain portion of the physical building itself, can anything else be co-located in there simultaneously?
That's not operated by the school district.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything that would prevent us from doing that.
Like a senior
I mean,
program
it says
or
community center on the sign.
Yeah.
or an after-school program, or things that are not education, but that could serve our community.
I don't think there's anything that would prevent that, other than getting the board to agree to do that.
Okay.
But there are public school buildings that have things in them
Right.
that are not.
Right, presumably there would have to be an economic arrangement, right? The school district's not gonna pay for it, we would, yeah.
We did it at the high school. We had a nonprofit work out of the sea level a couple of years back,
That's a good model then.
so.
But I think I'm gonna make sure that we can vote to keep the school open, but the district owns the building.
Correct, yes.
So we have to get their permission to do anything besides education in there, especially at the same time as students are there.
So, and part of this conversation is around not only today, right? So part of the reason why we want it, and again, I push to have this conversation. I really think it's important that the public be engaged and that you guys get to make these decisions. Is the building going forward, not only is it not being utilized to its full potential, but it also is deteriorating because it's not being utilized to its full potential, right? And so the longer that we continue to kind of go in this, idle mode with we got one classroom and the rest of the building is deteriorating, the more expensive it's going to be to operate. So long term, like that's something that I think taxpayers have to consider. And then what I wanted to get to with the budget is as we move forward, we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. What we do know is that we bought down our tax rates with $1 million, 1.1 million on the supervisory union side this year. We bought down another $350,000 to get us under the threshold utilizing West River Education dollars this year. And we don't have that moving forward. So if we don't make some sort of change to our budget, then we're going to start seeing, again, more and more double-digit increases. I am going to say, and this, from last night's meeting, as a person that worked on our budget, had these tough conversations about what we are going to cut in order to try to get under the threshold. We had a conversation last night that really, really bothered me, and ultimately the vote passed, so it is going to happen, but we spent a lot of time working on trying to, if you look in the book, I would say like nickel and dime programs in order to try to get underneath it, and then the board voted last night to increase administrative spending by another $25,000. That, like, I've been angry all day, knowing that I was going to have to come here and sit in front of you all and say, hey, because of fiscal restraints, we're asking to close a building, when the board last night voted to increase administrative cost yet again another $25,000. So, but that did happen.
I just want to, before we lose Laura, because what's been introduced in terms of thoughts around closing or not closing. So Laura, one of the risks that folks have been concerned about is that once the legislature puts together whatever the next step is for the districts, if we don't close the school, but whatever the evolved district is that owns this building, they could potentially a year from now have full control over it, still not operate it as a school, even sell it. And the town will have missed the window to take over the property. Is that a possibility?
I cannot say that it is absolutely not possible. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that you're weighing. I will tell you, I think the building is an asset for the town. And if the building was closed, I mean, the building should come to the town.
Chrissy?
Going back to the budget discussion, considering that this year, the budget we're gonna be voting on next week does not include operating JVS, and we're coming up on this giant cliff, because we have no more funds to buy down. Considering all of that, There's also the Senate Bill S-220 that I believe passed the Senate and is now at the House. Laura, do you know about that and what?
Yes.
Yes. I'll let Laura explain that.
Well, it's the excess spending threshold. And so it would be lowering the excess spending threshold. So the way that we determine equity in the state still is by equal dollar amounts per pupil. And the way that we keep districts in between the lines is through things like the excess spending penalty. So basically our policies drive towards a set amount, an average amount. And if you're in excess of that by a certain percentage, you get assessed a penalty. So I'm going to confess that I don't know where West River was in that. I do know that River Valleys was very much in the penalties. And I also, so I was also recommending to Dover and Wardsboro that there were places that they could cut. So, and hopefully that's happening as I'm a property taxpayer in that town.
Just to answer the question, we are at the threshold. So
okay,
all of the buy downs that we did, so 1.5, rough $1.4 million in tax buy downs, that brought us to the threshold. So now they're going to bring the threshold down, and we don't have anything to buy tax rates with. Like, this is a mess.
Are any of the bills under consideration in the House and Senate, do they address the administrative or supervisory budget and make any changes so that taxpayers can have input in that supervisory budget, or is it still going to be the same as it is now?
I haven't seen any bills that would change the way that supervisory union budgets are adopted.
Laura, were you able to hear that question?
Yeah, I will say that nothing's nothing until the end of the session, but right now it seems like we are headed towards what's called a CESA model, CESA, which will be all districts will be assigned to one of, it looks like 5 collaborative regions. There'll be an administrator that so it'll be mandatory that you're assigned, but voluntary whether or not you are collaborating within that group. And that's where it looks right now like things are going.
But I think Lori was asking a different question, Laura. She was asking if there were any legislative opportunity to have voter input in the supervisory budget.
I don't believe that's on the table, no. So that's through your representatives to the board.
What percentage, if you look at the budgets, what percentage of the total is supervisory versus the program?
I should know that off the top of my head. It's a really good
question. It's a big chunk. It's a big chunk.
Do we need to make new protest signs?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So I'd have to dig a little bit to get that. So the supervisory union budget includes all of your special ed costs. So that's part of what's in that budget. So
it's not all administrative?
It's not all administrative.
Right.
There is a fair amount of student-facing components through special ed or the MTSS budget. So,
well, they took a series of different, fee for service, and they combined them to make 2 budgets.
But I did want to put, so if you were to look at page 18, if anybody doesn't have the report, page 18, the top of the page, you can see the things that we went through and whittled out of the budget in order to try to get us down to that threshold that Laura was talking about, the double taxation threshold for this year, which may be lower next year. So you'll see what we cut from this year's budget, amounting to about $946,000 in local West River Education District cuts. And then if you look at the bottom, section, the things that were increased, our assessment to the SU went up by 700,000, salaries 200,000, health insurance, so on and so forth. So those are the major cost drivers that you're seeing in our budget. And the reason why we're sitting here is because the biggest chunk of the 900,000 would come from closing Jamaica School and eliminating that programming. But there's a couple other things that I think are important to look at too. It's cutting capital expenses. So all of that deferred maintenance that we are seeing already in the buildings is not going to get better because we had to, in order to get under the threshold this year, already eliminate the money we need to maintain our facilities. I know that the after-school program is really important to a lot of families. The reason why that is reduced is because we got a grant, but when that grant runs out, there's going to be no money to put after-school programming back. So we are on a runway where when the grant runs out, and I think 4 years or 5 years, that will be the end of the after-school programming because there is no more money in this budget.
We have a question from online here. School closes, Jamaica buys the building, do taxes go up, down, or stay the same?
So it depends on what Jamaica chooses to do with the building. So the building's still gonna have to be heated and plowed and insured. So right now.
If we don't close, right.
So right now, all of the carrying costs of that building are spread across the entire district. If Jamaica buys the building, I'm sure your presentation.
We'll be talking about that
Jamaica
separately.
assumes all of that.
I think they're saying.
Yep.
They're saying the school
education.
budget though, will the school budgets go up if we close?
So
what's the impact of the school budget?
So if Jamaica stays open, this year, it won't change the budget at all because the budget's already been warned, there'll be deficit spending, and that'll be added to next year's budget. If we were to, the total impact would be 294,000, but it's gonna be added to next year's budget, not this year's budget, because the budget we put in front of the voters doesn't have that in it.
Is it safe to say it increases the risk that next year your education taxes will go up?
So it does.
Right,
but there
this
is
is another factor.
Right.
It's
So-
it's $300,000, which is gonna burden the budget.
We do have some.
I'm not saying
yeah.
one way or the other, I'm just
Well,
saying, right.
So, and we've had, again, a lot of conversations. We do have some fund balance. So in the event that we kept the building open and had a deficit spend that 294,000, we would be able to buy some of that with fund balance, because we intentionally left a little bit of money there so that we would have some buffer. But we don't have a lot of buffer. A couple $100,000 in a $12 million budget is not a lot of buffer. So we are all going to feel the impact of this soon, right there. So this year it doesn't feel good. Our tax rates, if you go to page, right now, based on all the make-believe children, the yield that's proposed, and the state-adjusted CLA, Jamaica's looking at a 11% tax increase if we do all of these things. And that's on page 24.
Is that an 11% increase to one individual property to whole tax bill, or is it just the education portion of the property tax bill that's being increased?
Education portion.
So it's not like if your tax bill is $4,000, it's not gonna go up $450.
What was the town rate?
On the voted budget,
4%, I think.
4%?
We say it's 4%.
Right. So it would be 4% of the
4 to 5.
4% of the town and 11% on your education.
I think one of the things we need to talk about tonight is down to the individual amount, because we're talking about all of these really big numbers, right? And double digits, it all sounds really scary and really crazy and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what I think would be helpful would be see if we keep our school open, what do our taxes look like? If we close our school and buy it back, what do our taxes look like? It's
not really possible to do $1 for it. You can't, because, the complexity of the budget is obvious from just looking at this book.
Right.
And the role that the cost that Jamaica plays in that is not, it's not binary. you have to look at the huge picture, which is next year is a disaster, we're terrified, we're looking at going up a cliff, and to be, you know, closing Jamaica would be a little.
It just sounds like it's gonna go up either way, so it's just like how much either way.
How do you make it concrete to us who have to vote and pay the bill?
I would love to tell you that there's a concrete answer. So the big variables that exist are the spending threshold cap that we mentioned, right? So if they drop that by, say they drop that by $1,000, that means that we would have to drop our budget by $1,000 per pupil, which is really $2,000 per student, right? If we can't do that, then we have to pay double taxation, so we start off in the hole. So what's happening in Montpelier right now has such an impact that it's very difficult. So we would have to go through a list of hypotheticals to calculate that. So hypothetically, if they dropped it by 1,000, what would that impact be? If the federal government does not provide education funding, so what we heard last night is that we may see a little bit of the education funding that was withdrawn from Vermont, from the federal government, given back to Vermont. So if the supervisory union does get some title money, that may reduce that $750,000 increase, in which case we may have raised more taxes than we needed to because we got federal revenue that we weren't anticipating. So like there's that. So it's really, really tough to put those numbers together unless we wanted to go down through and like pick variables and go, what do we think is going to happen in Montpelier? What do we think is going to happen in Washington? And then play the game out. I just don't know.
All right, Drew, I need to take it to my level, really basic. So closing the school this year is not gonna make a difference on our school tax bill for this year. And the only difference that might happen is to move the burden of the carrying cost from the school district to the town. Is that fair to say?
So if all the districts combined voted to approve the budget and the town of Jamaica voted to not close the school, or voted to close the school, either way, the tax rate would not change. Because the budget that's being presented is the budget that's being presented. Right. Any carrying costs would be then rolled forward and they'd be dealt with by the entire district next year, because they would be deficit spending.
That budget is based on Jamaica closing.
This budget is based on Jamaica. It's based on all of the factors that are on page 18. If Jamaica votes to close the school, then on or before the 1st of July, and the town decides to buy it, all carrying costs from that point forward would be then a burden on the town. The school district wouldn't be paying heat or electricity or internet or anything anymore.
And we're going to talk some more about that.
Jessica, did we put money in the budget for that?
Yeah, we have funds for building for town properties. So there are funds for it, and I think, Robert, you correct me if I'm wrong, but look like from the slides, you're gonna talk about what those costs might be. We have to obviously sharpen our pencils, but we're gonna have a sense of it. There's also obviously the potential to simply sell the property, collect the revenue from that, and then that property is now on the grand list and it's generating income. So you kind of have to, it's very hard to look at it as a straightforward dollar for dollar, but if there's a view, I mean, I think that in the past there's been a view, maybe the school might be used again, you know, and keep it open for that. And also, there's also kind of, I feel like a little bit of very little focus on the fact that, yes, it doesn't change your tax dollars, but that money is being spent. That's money that could be spent elsewhere in the school district. So that, it's really important. That's $300,000 that is being spent on keeping a building open, it sounds like not for pre-K. So really just for, I think what I've heard speculated is that there'll be some, once a month, students will be brought to the school to do something, right? So it's just, that burdens the dollars in the school district. You know what I mean? That's money that's not available for other school programs.
So are you saying that like if we vote to keep the school open, they're still allowed to close the preschool program?
So
Yes, the short answer is yes.
So-
Yes.
here, let me see if I can clarify this. Okay, the understanding, so the board members, the conversation the board members have had is that should Jamaica vote to keep the school open, we would continue to run the program the way it is and deficit spend the $295,000. There is, and I heard last night at the meeting, apparently there's some discussion at the administrative level about a different plan. What I can tell you is, as your representative for another year, and I will not be taking the seat or running again, as your representative for another year, I would do everything in my power to make that happen, because I believe that would be what the vote would be directing me as your representative to do. I cannot control what the other board members choose to do. But that I have spoken to several board members today after the comments that were made last night, and all of the board members that I've spoken to agree that was the conversation that the board had, which is if Jamaica votes no, the preschool would stay open, we would deficit spend for this year. That was the conversation that happened at the board. What I want to make very clear to everybody is I cannot sit here and guarantee that, because I cannot guarantee the actions of the future board. We're going to reorganize in a week, and I may not be the chair next year, in which case we may go back to old ways. We can't guarantee that the future board is not going to eliminate 3-year-olds altogether. Or we can't guarantee that they're not going to decide that 24 number that we were told is going to be an 18 number because we've decided we don't want that many kids. I can't guarantee any of those things. And this is what's really tough about making a decision is I'm going to give you all the variables that I can't control, but you need to consider before you go to a ballot box. I don't want to tell you how to vote. I just want to give you all of the possible things. I can tell you what we can control. I'm going to tell you what we can't control. And Dana and I are doing the best we can to represent you. And if you vote no, then we're going to do our best to make sure that message gets back to the board and that we do what we intended to do.
Drew, can you explain a little more about the meeting last night and the 25,000 and where that's going and what the cuts are? And then if you two could address Jessica's question, once we're done with the budget part, about possibly losing the school if we don't vote on this, that the school district would get to keep it. And I think that we have a totally different, 11 years ago, we signed paperwork that's very different from a lot of other school districts. And the only way the school can close is if the town votes to close the school and then we get it back for $1. So I don't think we're at risk of losing our school because of that.
All right, so from, again, kind of going back to page 18, and this is, and I'm gonna get beat up at this next school board meeting, so all the school board members that are watching, I'll be ready for you. And the administration. We went through a very difficult process to, and if you look, like reduce, for example, library, right? We had to eliminate some library services. We had to eliminate some music services. We had to go through and reduce English and Spanish and remove some of the money that provided enrichment activities to our kids. Now, all of those things listed there, including closing Jamaica School, came up to $946,000. None of that felt good as a board member, right? I don't want to cut programs for kids, but we needed to in order to reach our objective of not being double taxed. So we did. We looked at all of those things. So what's happened is the vice principal at the high school has resigned, and the administration proposed a new model which is co-principals. So rather than having a principal and an assistant principal, they want to have 2 principals. Well, a principal and assistant principal come at one cost. 2 principals come at a higher cost. As a representative and a taxpayer, I was and still am against spending an additional $25,000 on administration when we beat up every education program we could and we took away student-facing programs. So if this had been on the list back when we were looking at the budget, which is to fund this or cut these, it would have been a no-brainer for me. So there's no part of my decision-making that would have added administrative costs at the cost of student programs. But the board did do that, so now, and the way that the vote went is they're going to have to find additional cuts inside of the budget. So the board authorized the new model and the additional administrative costs, as long as they do not increase the total budget, which means they're going to be reaching inside the budget and finding some additional cuts in order to pay for that administrative salary. So that's the part that frustrates me.
Is Leon and Ray actually large enough to even have 2 principals? I mean, a lot of schools are 500-600 people, and they have 1.
They have 245 students.
I realize
That's-
one principal should be plenty for that number
Yeah.
of students. You don't need assistant principals, guidance counselors.
Sounds like I don't need to answer that question.
You've answered it for us.
So there's a question at the back, yeah.
So if we buy this building for $1, which always sounds great, but this building comes with a really high, and he explained it's been Band-Aid fixed forever. Because we're on the outside, you know, like they take care of the other ones. So my question is, we buy it for $1, are we locked in to owning it for any specific amount of time before?
Can we hold that to the next, because this is really just about the school.
This is about the money.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that either. So.
I have a comment, kind of separate from what we've been talking about. In our articles, and I think Karen was mentioning our articles a little bit and how they're different. Our articles of agreement for this district that was formed allow Jamaica the opportunity to vote to close our school. We have, the district cannot just close it on their own. We, as a town, have to vote to close our school. If we don't vote to close it, the district does have to provide direct education in the school. But again, that could be once a month, sending the high school kids up here.
Right.
The other part of it is that we have the opportunity, if we do close our school, to buy it for $1. Now, other districts do not have this. They have a board closing their school without their input. They have no opportunity to buy their building. We have the opportunity to buy the building for $1 if we do close our school. My concern is with the legislature, what's happening there. If we are forced to merge, we lose those articles. They do not exist anymore.
Right.
So I just want to put that.
It's not like a contract between private parties that you can go to a court and enforce. It's all under the rubric of legislation.
But I guess, how is the deed written? If the first right of refusal of the sale of the school is for the town, it doesn't matter what happens with the school district or any of that. If it is in the deed.
It's in the articles. It's not running with the land like you think of, like a private contract between two individuals.
I think we need to look at the deed to see what the deed says,
We
because that
have-
would supersede anything that the school district could do. And so it would be a moot point.
What I'm saying is, in this case, it's not a private contract between two private parties, which is what would cause a covenant that runs with the land. This is entirely the contribution of that property to the school district was done under the articles, which were also, that resolution is recorded. But it doesn't mean that we in perpetuity have the right that was granted in the articles.
I'm sure that somewhere in the vault is the deed for this.
We have it,
We
yeah,
looked
we've
at it.
already.
We did look at that.
We did the title,
She
we
looked
did
at
the
it.
title.
I did the title search on the original.
Yeah.
Can you clarify then, what would revoke our right of refusal?
So so here's where I would say, if we wanna get a little bit deeper, we have to go to outside counsel, go to town council. council to review this, but we've heard from our legislator that we can't, I'm not saying we will, but she can't say that the legislature will not pass a law that would allow the eventual district to do as they wish with that property. She can't say that they won't.
Or that the legislature would not dissolve the union,
Right,
basically the red,
right,
the West River
right.
Unified District.
I-
The legislature could dissolve
Legislature could give the
as
property back to
law,
us.
But that's not
But we have
guaranteed.
no idea, we don't know.
We don't
We
know.
don't know.
It is in educational, it is in the educational committees.
Yeah, this is the question of whether to close the school or not, but you're right, buying it
So we're
back.
there now?
We should move to the next point.
Yes.
I just have a kind of an unusual thought. Why wouldn't we buy back the school for $1 and privatize the whole thing to elderly community?
So we're gonna have that conversation very shortly.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you're right, I think we're probably coming to the end of the first part. But did Laura have something?
Laura, did you have something else to talk about?
Yeah, I just,
Oh, hang on a second.
if I could.
Please, order.
Yeah, I'll stay as long as you need me to, but I do want to say that if the town of Jamaica wants to retain control of that building, no matter what, I will fight very hard to make sure that happens, and I would appreciate a letter saying so. That would be great. Okay?
Thank you, Laura.
All right.
We're gonna move on
I think
now.
let's move, yeah.
Article 2.
Yeah.
The voters of the Town of Jamaica vote the affirmative Article 1, then the shall voters of the Town of Jamaica also vote to purchase the Jamaica Village School from the district for $1 pursuant with the terms of the Articles of Agreement, which we've spoken about, approved by the electorate in the Jamaica Town School District on March 17, 2017. At this point, Siobhan and Robert's gonna get up, I'm sorry, Robert's gonna get up and he's the head of the committee.
Sorry.
Guys, we're doing. So I get to put my other hat on because, as you guys probably have figured out, I have a pretty strong opinion on one side and probably an equally as strong opinion on the other. So I was part of the subcommittee that looked at this. So I wrote about 10 pages worth of comments, narrowed it down to 5, and then thankfully my wife helped me get it down to 1 in very large print. So if I could read this real quick, and then I promise to hand this to Jason and Siobhan, who have the meat of the thing. But I just wanted to make sure we are all on the same page as far as what the committee was to look at. And to recognize that, in my opinion, the Jamaica School has always been more than just a building. It is the heart of our town. Most of us here have either been a personal stake in the history, we've walked the halls as students, sent our children through the doors, have gathered there for community milestones. It has always been our hub, and tonight is about ensuring that legacy continues. Okay, we have a great opportunity here. Our working group was formed by the select board to explore the what if. If the town votes to close the school and purchase it for $1, what comes next? It's important to clarify that our job wasn't to decide the school's fate. We did not talk about if the school should close or stay open, okay? It was to listen to your visions for its future. We consulted with social service agencies, reviewed surveys, spoke to our neighbors to understand how this space can drive growth in Jamaica. This was just the first step in a marathon, and the town must decide if we even want to enter the race. But the reward for taking on this task is clear. As you've all heard from everybody who spoke, we get to control our future if we do. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create a space that fosters unity, builds resilience, and in ways we had not even imagined. Tonight we begin the conversation about protecting this cornerstone for the next generation. So no pressure, guys. You guys get to come up and tell everybody what we can do with this building, because I think it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to keep something that is valuable to our town if we decide to close it. And again, we're not making any comments about that. We're just here to present ideas that people came to us with and put it out there for you guys to, think about. Jason, Siobhan, yours.
Okay,
Hi, everybody. I can't sit down in these things, so you
Looks
can,
like she's got a
you
move.
can sit if you like, but I stand and walk around and when I talk. Ask my husband, I'm always chasing. I'm going.
Oh, okay, good. All right, just wanted to make sure.
That's okay. I'm Siobhan McDermott, and I'm a full-time resident in Jamaica for the last several years. My husband and I have had a home on West Hill for about 15 years, and we are really happy to call this our home now. I joined the Planning Commission last year because I really wanted to understand what was happening in Jamaica on a very fundamental level, not just what the social activities are or where we're fortunately now eating dinner at our local restaurant, but what's really happening here and affecting the lives of our neighbors in our communities. When the Selectboard agreed to convene this working group, I volunteered because I really wanted to be a part of this conversation. I've spent my entire career working with nonprofit organizations, doing fundraising, capital campaigns, strategic plans, and community consensus building. So this is what I do. And that doesn't mean my ideas are right, but I'm really here to try to help all of us shepherd a plan. Now, I can't follow these guys. 90% of what you said, I still don't understand. But what I do understand is that we're at a precipice here. And we have to decide what needs to happen for our school district. And even if we vote to keep the school open, there is work and planning to be done for how we can make this in the future best serve our community. And it might not be today, and it might not even be in September, but it's coming, and we need to be prepared. So let's go to the first slide, if you wouldn't mind. There we go. Okay, as we have discussed, we have this opportunity to buy the building for $1 if the town votes to close the school. We went through a process of, as Robert said, talking to lots of folks. We didn't just talk to social service providers, we talked to community members. We did research into other like examples, which we're going to talk about today. Just at the very highest surface, we had a very short period of time. We want to bring information to the town so that everyone can make an informed decision. I will say that across the board in our small working group, pre-K was a priority over and over and over again. We talked about what our families in this community need. And if everybody that was on the planning group, the working group, can just raise their hands. We had a couple of great folks say thank you very much, because it really was a community effort. So I just want to lead with one piece. If we decide to not retain the building, we have, and it bears repeating, we have lost all control over what happens to that building, that site, that center of our town that we all go by and tourists go by and campers go by and we go by with our kids to go to the river. It could become anything and we have no control. It could be apartments. It could be
a data center.
A data center. It could be. All over the country, properties are being bought up.
We don't have internet.
It could be a gravel pit, or it could be something wonderful that we could really give our community. A legacy is a term I think Robert used at one point, from our generation to the next and the next. In Jamaica right now, and I don't know, I'm not sure everyone can see, so I don't like to read slides, but I'm going to do some highlights. We have incredible assets in our community. We have so many citizens that volunteer for all kinds of things, from the fire department to the historical society to the arts councils. There's always somebody doing something for Jamaica Day or Tommy Fest and so forth. It's a really incredibly active community. We have artists and makers and entrepreneurs, and people really stand together when they're not running for shelter under a thunder. people moving into our community. Some of them have children, some of them don't. But we really want this to be a place that draws people. And I can tell you, when I go around and I say I'm from Jamaica, not outside of this region, but every time you say I'm from Jamaica, somebody goes, oh yeah, it's really cool there, right? And I get that all the time. So I hope you understand that this is a very special place. And you've been here, many of you, so much longer than me, so I don't need to tell you that. We have a lot of incredible natural resources, and we need to make those the centerpiece of our community. But we have a lot of challenges too. There's an incredibly high cost of living, and there just simply aren't enough places to live. The turnover in housing stock is very small. COVID really whammied us when a lot of people bought homes and never actually came back. We have this loss of stores and a bit of a hollowing out of downtown as shops have closed over the years. And so there's not that many places to come together and connect. So there's this disconnection, and it's really a problem. The wastewater situation impedes a lot of our progress, and we can't build new homes downtown. We can't, and now with Act 181, who knows what we can build anyway. But there's a lot of things that are holding back some of our progress and some of our ability to serve our neighbors. And this is a chance to actually put an anchor in the water and hold on to something. So central to a lot of this is the reality that we have so limited services for seniors and families and little children. So we really focused a lot of our conversations around that. Next slide, please. So due to consolidation, education consolidation, schools are closing everywhere. We just heard Laura and all of us talk about this. And what is happening in these spaces around the state? There's incredible creativity, and it's not just in Vermont, it's everywhere as schools have changed. They're being repurposed into these great community centers, and we want to try to not duplicate what the next door neighbor has, but we really want to look at what could happen in our community. And Jason's got all kinds of stuff he's going to tell you about in a few minutes.
No pressure.
So before we get to what we were hearing in our community, I want to give a couple of examples of what's happening in some of our surrounding towns. So many of you probably know the Wynn Hall Center right down the road. It too was a small schoolhouse. Well, we're not small. So it was a small schoolhouse. There's just 2 stories. And in that building, they have so many programs for kids, for seniors. They have exercise classes. They have vegetarian dinners once a month. I have learned to cook all kinds of vegetarian meals so I can go. They have a food shelf that is run by the community center. The majority of that operating budget is paid for by the town of Wynn Hall. So it's not necessarily germane to us because we're trying to figure out a model that won't cost the town more money, but they also raise money throughout the year for donations. And what works about that is that they do have money from the town, but they have this mix of services for all ages, all kinds of different things. In our next example, it's the Old School Community Center in Wilmington. Now, Wilmington is a really big town. There's 2,500 people, which is 2.5 times the size of Jamaica, right?
A little less.
A little less, but it's got a much more significant downtown business districts. But what they did with their school was really fascinating. They wanted to provide all of these services, but without the expense. So it is a hub for businesses to come in, rent space, and deliver services. They have youth programs, they have art programs, they have social service, they have a business incubator, and they are creating jobs. They have incredible businesses in this facility. They've got a bakery, they've got a stonemason training school, so they're giving people job opportunities and skills, trade skills. They've got a physical therapist, they've got a gym, and they've got a daycare center, among other residents or tenants in the building. In the next example, this one's particularly cool. It's called the Valley Hub, the Quinn Town Valley Hub. And the Quinn Towns, hold on, I gotta tell you who they are. It's a conglomeration of 5 towns coming together that are all closely located. And it's Granville, Hancock, Rochester, Stockbridge, and Pittsfield. And the board of directors is 2 people from each one of those towns. And they're in the process of figuring out exactly what their center is going to be. It's not open yet. They had a great opportunity and got $2.3 million in a federal appropriation 2 years ago to renovate the building. We could apply for something like that next year, but right now we're trying to get that money for the library. But what's great about this is that they're trying to serve a variety of communities and sort of shared services. At the risk of sounding regional, which I know is a big problem in our school district issue, this is about towns coming together to figure out what makes sense for their community. So there's all these great examples, but I want to show you one more quickly. I know it's getting late. This is in New York State, in the town called Paseko. Not Prosecco, which would be really great at this moment, but it's Paseko, New York. It's just west of Lake George. And the reason I wanted to include this is because when the school closed, it was a terrible social blow to the community. You could go Google it when you get home. There's lots of news articles written about how devastating it was to the community that they closed this school. So they moved the town offices down the hall, and they added a fitness room, and they added a few other things. But you know what I thought was the coolest part of it? Is in the cafeteria, every day there's a fresh pot of coffee. And anybody can come and just sit down and have a cup of coffee. There's a jar if you want to put money in. You don't have to. But people come every day to have a place to meet as a community. And I feel like that's what we're trying to work toward here in our potential Jamaica Hub. Next slide.
Yeah.
This slide just shows all of the great things, not all of them, some of the great things that are already in our community. But there's another aspect to these pictures that I think is really interesting. It shows programs and events and things that have been in Jamaica for decades. And some of them have been here, the Jamaica Day Parade, the town hall has hosted programming for years, the church has been here as a part of our community for decades. And then there's other really cool things like the pie potluck that just started a couple of years ago, or the sidewalk social that started this summer, where people said, well, forget it, if there's nowhere to go, let's just make our own. And Lori and her husband opened their parking lot, and we all hang out there, and Jamaica House has music, and people buy a pizza from West River, or they bring their own sandwich, and they hang out, because that's what Jamaica does. Everybody just gets on, and it's really very unique. So as we move forward, there's a quick, on the next slide, there's a quick summary of some of the extraordinary things that we have in our town. The Arts Council, the fitness programs. You know, there's a running club now on Wednesday nights. I don't run anymore, but there is. There's hiking, there's biking, there's so many things to do. But what study after study after study illustrates in urban planning and community planning and downtown revitalization planning illustrates is that place-making, which sounds like jargon, but placemaking is a thing. When you create a series of activities and homes and spaces for people to gather, more people come. You build apartments, shops open. You build shops, apartments open, restaurants open. And I know we have big things to figure out, like wastewater and sewage and stuff like that, that we're not going to solve overnight. But what we can do is create something extraordinary and just serve our community and be together. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason. because he's gonna talk about some of the ideas that we shared. Walt?
That was great.
Thank you.
Yes, so I've had a place on West Jamaica Road for 27 years. I moved up here full-time a year ago. Recently joined the Selectboard, and Jessica asked, I've worked as an engineer for many years, and so she asked me to get involved with this effort, along with Robert.
I volunteered him.
She volunteered me.
And Siobhan.
Yeah, and the group has been great, and it's been very exciting to sort of see the possibilities, but I tried to have sort of a prism of, from an engineer's perspective, the facility itself, nuts and bolts, like what's it gonna take to operate this place, how much is it gonna cost? So kind of trying to ground some of the aspirational things that we were talking about.
Next one. No.
Is this, we're going the wrong way? No.
Going the wrong way?
No, going the wrong way.
That one, stop there.
Yeah, so, okay, so there's a certain number of unique things about this park. The proximity to the park is obviously the really big one. So one way that we try to think about this is that, yes, we're gonna apply for grants, and there are a lot of grants out there that we can try to bring in, but I was trying to think of how can we make this a money-generating, a self-sustaining enterprise. And there are 6 very large classrooms that can be rented out for youth programs, for elder care. There's lots of, like, basically nonprofits could rent out some of the spaces, and that can bring in some revenue. The proximity, like maker spaces or having, bike rentals, kind of leveraging the proximity of the park, and also having campsites and lean-tos that we could rent out if you ever try to get, a space at Jamaica State Park. It's like a year out to so, and there are lots of enterprises going on around town where there's people are making glamping tents, and there's, kind of what Siobhan was saying, like Jamaica is a cool place. People want to come here, especially in the summertime, and we could leverage that to bring in money to run the programs that would be at this facility.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, so recreation is gonna be a big one. There's a gym there. We can have programs, youth programs, elder services, pre-K, as we were talking before. Thank you. That, that basically we'd be in control of that process. And like Siobhan was saying, I didn't understand exactly all the machinations of the budgets and but to be in control of it and have it be a private program that, we can get state funding for, and then also augment with other things we can do at the property. And also the other possibility there is to move some of the facilities in town, like the town offices could migrate down there, and it's a way of populating it with right away with a lot of critical town operations, and then this facility could become affordable housing, for instance. So there are things that multiple problems could be solved by trying to develop this property in a way that serves all the needs of the town collectively. Okay, so this is the boring engineering stuff. But generally the structure is sound. There's some cosmetic issues, paint jobs, there's some rotting wood, there's some mold here and there, but nothing that's not fixable. I think it's in great shape. I mean, there were a lot of things that were in some of the engineering reports that needed to be upgraded, but not all of them actually.
So there was an engineer report done?
Sorry?
There was an engineer.
There was, but sometimes.
The school district, previously.
Last year.
But was there anything that ever came up about the septic in the leach field?
Yes, that's a good point. So the big things basically is the septic system, and particularly the piping going to the leach field from the septic system, that needs to be dug up and rerun because there's a dip.
And was there a cost on that? Or?
I don't know if they costed that out, but it would probably be in the range of like $15,000, something like that. The other issue is that the underground storage tank is beyond its serviceable life and it needs to get pulled. And
What's it stored?
number 2 fuel oil, heating oil. So what needs happening to pull the tank, put a concrete slab, put a kerosene tank there, and that can run the furnace, and then we have a heating system. So those are the big.
Was there anything done as far as the well goes for water, or?
The well has been tested and is suitable to serve the facility in the ways that we've talked about. So that one, the well is fine, it's just the septic that's.
So it was all tested and?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's required as well.
This is Greg's
Greg,
session.
yeah, he used to be the maintenance guy at the
Oh,
Jamaica
yes.
Village.
Ah,
So the reason he has it is because he knows the underneath, he knows the top, he
Well, I
knows,
just,
he's
as
been
far
on the
as I
road
knew
many
last,
times.
when I talked to a gentleman that went and checked and said, we definitely have a serious problem with the flow from the septic to the leach field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, it's going underneath the parking lot and basically just the weight of the vehicles or, basically there's a bow so it'll freeze, the water needs to be at like a 2% pitch to get to the leach field, and we can do that, and that's sort of like it's not a solvable problem, but it's a big one in the winter when it fails.
And the other question I had real quick was about the floors in the place with the asbestos.
Yeah, so with asbestos flooring like that, or the tiles, basically, as long as you're not like hitting them and making the material friable, it's not something that you need to abate, it's
But
not
it's
something
still
you need to
there.
fix. It's still there, but as long as you're not doing things to disrupt it, it's not
I
biologically
just
available.
know when I was there last, there was a lot of cracking tiles like this, where there's asbestos underneath and they need to be replaced.
Yeah, if there's specific tiles that need to be, you could do like spot abatements, but it's not necessarily to kind of take everything out. It's just if there's a particular issue with that. That's a good point. Yeah.
I just wanted to point out on the water system, it is a public water system that's permitted by the state, and it does require regular testing for a
Yes.
variety of contaminants. So I did look at all of that testing, and everything is looking good. There's no deficiency, there's no major deficiencies identified by the state currently.
So they have the water system that, in the back room where the water comes in and it feeds out through the building, that's all up to date.
Yeah, there's no deficiencies identified by the state. It is all disinfected.
As
I
of-
believe it
as
has
of-
UV
Yeah.
testing. It's currently operating as a public water system.
Well, I would double check that.
Sorry, say again, that's the UV.
I would double check that.
Yeah.
The state inspects it every 3 years.
Yeah, but that's a good point. So, so the infrastructure, there's a few tweaks, a few things we need to do, but generally, it's in good shape. Yeah, okay, so we'll go to the next one. Okay, so there are some capital improvements that we need to do that first year, like replacing the tank and doing the septic work.
Right.
So the first year is gonna be a bit more, but then year on year, we're looking at expenses of about $150,000.
Did they do any testing around whether that tank is leaking or not?
It's a good question. It's a 40-year-old tank. Service life is about 30 years. We don't know if it's leaking. We'll find out when we pull it. If it is leaking, then there is a $10,000 kind of like a deductible that you have to pay to do whatever initial remediation is necessary. And then there's a petroleum fund that goes up to $1 million from the state that kicks in. So there is a little bit, there's some liability there if it is leaking. Hopefully it's not, but if it is, then it's $10,000 in addition to, basically the regular excavation, like just pulling the tank is gonna be like a $20,000 effort. If there's an additional $10,000, then it's a $30,000 effort, but then the state funds kick in for that.
And my other question would be the heating system,
Mm-hmm.
where the furnaces are, I mean.
We haven't had access to the mechanical room yet, so I haven't inspected the furnace. I'm assuming, it's been working fine this winter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know any more about
So Greg, as far as I know, over the last 3 years, I've got the reports where they have replaced the blowers inside the handling systems and things like that. So the systems aren't new, but they have been updated, maintained.
The blowers have.
Blowers and the furnaces, so I think a year ago, one of the fans, something had to be replaced on the furnace.
Right.
They've been staying right on top of it, and they've been checked every about 6 months from what I could tell
I'm
from
just
the
curious,
reports.
who's been staying on top of it?
Greg Frost.
Well, Greg Frost was
Greg
able to
Frost,
hand me the reports, but he's not the one who's doing it.
Right.
It's the people who are filling the tanks and everything. So
Yeah, yeah.
they are staying on top of the maintenance and doing
But
really.
again, if you're gonna purchase a building and the furnaces are I guess my concern would be knowing what date those were put in there and, you know, because furnaces don't last forever.
Right.
So that's.
They're putting when the oil tank was put in.
Yeah.
They were probably putting when the oil tank was put in.
When I was in school there?
Yeah, when you were in school.
That was a long time ago. Because I graduated in '77 at Leland Gray, so. that's
Well,
way back.
I know we did put money in
Yeah.
when the ESSER grants, when the COVID came out from Alliance.
I'm just saying, when you have
Come
a
in.
building like that, my concern is that you have furnaces there, and if you're gonna take it over and do what you wanna do, you gotta definitely check into those furnaces and.
Yeah, that would be that sort of extra effort, like, you know, moving forward,
And that
like.
turns into ching, so, yeah.
Yeah, like, and it may be, like, we'd have to do a cost benefit analysis.
And they
of-
may even give us a grant to do it.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the big part.
We're gonna look at every, hunt down every dollar.
And then the other concern I would have when I was down there is all the roofs. Because I used to have to go up and walk the roofs and re-screw them down and whatnot, and, you know.
How come you weren't on our committee? You know
Yeah.
everything.
No one told me about it and I work too much.
Oh, all right,
You know,
well,
Moonlight
you're deputized.
in Vermont.
I think you might have just been volunteered, Greg,
Well,
just saying.
yeah, anytime you wanna ask any questions.
That'll cut into his red
He's
Sox
one of
stock.
the guys that hired me.
I was actually one of the volunteers that screwed down that roof, so, and made that roof, so you might wanna recheck that.
The other one I want to bring up is all the siding on the building is T111, I believe, right? So there's a lot of rot in there, so, you know.
Yeah, and that's part of it.
I could take you down and point out everything I saw through the years.
And that's part of the, like, cosmetic stuff that needs to happen.
Yeah, no,
on the
that's.
facade, you know,
but
like,
who-
all that.
But again, who knows how much rot is on the, you know. It is brick, but we don't know about the insulation, you know. Like, I could take a screwdriver and go like this.
Yeah. Thank you, I think, yes,
Anyway,
and
move on.
understood, yeah.
There's work to be done, but nothing that's insurmountable.
No,
And in terms of the heating system, like, it may come to a point where, you know, it makes sense to put mini splits in.
Yeah.
And just abandon it. I don't, you know, it depends on how things shake out, like you're saying.
Or we also talked about putting in a system with maybe wood chips or something.
Right.
like
I mean, I
that.
think-
Like
right,
what Leland Gray
right.
has, that Ralph put in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's,
or solar.
yeah, let's stay big, Madeline, let's stay big picture, just for purposes of this, cause we're rounding out to hour 2, so.
Yes, I just wanna real quick, one thing that we didn't touch on is if we closed the school last year, one of the things was that we weren't allowed to turn it into an education facility. Is that still a thing? And number 2, if we were to close the school and buy it back down the road, would we have the option of renting it back to a school district?
So, that was looked at with AJ LaRosa, who's counsel for the school
Yeah.
district. The penalty would be that we would have to pay back any, bonds that were against the school, but there's no bonds against the school. So
Okay,
even though technically there would be a penalty if we did, there is no penalty, because there's no effective
I
penalty.
wondered why that had just disappeared.
I don't.
It didn't, the language is still in the articles, it's
Oh.
just, that's what it is. It's,
Okay.
you can't, and if you do, this is what happens, but when there's no stick,
That's good to know.
yeah.
I also don't think that the state is allowing any new schools to go in right now as they're restructuring everything, so
Yeah, it's
it'll be a little while.
To be perfectly honest, representing lots of small schools, there aren't enough students. So
Right.
I don't think that we would I don't think we should count on finding a school that would wanna operate.
Well, right, I just wanted to just have all of the options on the table.
Right.
If we were to able to use it as an educational facility of some sort. And if we would be, if we owned it, we could obviously rent it out to whoever we want.
Right.
And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that a pre-K program would be okay. That there would be no problem.
Yes, because that's not mandated, yeah.
We decided to do a private pre-K program, no issues there.
One other thing I wanted to.
Daycare is
Yeah.
okay.
One other thing I want to throw out there, do you know the history of the school and when it was built?
1956.
On the one wing, and then the other one was built obviously later. Okay.
I have the deeds if anyone's interested. I dug up Karen, thanks to Karen pointing me in the right direction. I found the old deeds when the land was deeded to the town, and So I have those if anyone wants to copy some.
Okay, so in terms of the expenses, just a part-time administrator would be necessary for this facility, just to run the maintenance, to rent out the facilities, to take care of any tenants, take care of campsites that would be there or lean-tos. So somebody would need to be, at least on a part-time basis, working that angle. So again, revenue is renting out the classroom, the gym spaces, having drop-in co-working. The Wi-Fi there, or the internet connection there is excellent, so that's a lot,
Right.
one thing that's good.
Even like, did you guys talk about moving the post office there potentially?
We didn't talk about the post office, we're kind of focused on like the
Okay.
town office first, and then there are other possibilities.
Great place for me parking.
Yes, yes.
How much property is actually at the school? How much acreage?
6
Six,
acres.
6 acres.
Yeah, more than you might think.
That's fine.
Okay, and then, the potential sale of the town office would bring in money that, at least some of that money could be used for capital improvements or other things for the town, if they're selling this property. And that's the article.
Okay, that's the
Here's the article,
Right.
and we already read that.
Okay. So, there's just two options.
You can buy the property.
If you don't, if the vote is to close the school and we don't buy the property, then we kind of lose control of what happens to it. If we close the school and decide to buy it for $1, then we have control over what it might be. And then that would be a whole community effort to figure out what is the best use of the property and,
Getting advice from experts.
getting advice from experts, but also taking into account what the needs of the community are and what the community wants. So we just kind of did like a little sliver of that effort to kind of see what it might look like.
Is that the
Go vote.
The
How
vote
long
is,
is this offer on the table?
Here.
the vote is here
$1.
a week from tomorrow on the 8th, from
Right.
7,
So
from
the
9
way-
AM to 7 PM.
Right, but I think to answer your question, we as a town have to be asked by the school board
Right.
to vote to close.
Right.
We can't unilaterally say to the school board, close it. We've been given that opportunity to vote next week on that. We were also given that opportunity last year. But I don't know, nobody can say if we get that opportunity again, yeah.
And this is the third or fourth time we voted, isn't it?
No, it's the second
Still
time.
in the second
But
time?
the one thing, if the town votes to close the school and not buy it, the school district is required to sell the property.
Right.
So that won't come back up again. So
Okay,
you
that
can't,
was my-
they won't hold on to it for a year and then offer it back to you for $1 next year.
Good point.
So the
This
school,
is like our final
right, so if they-
Hail Mary.
if the school closes and the town doesn't buy it, the school district is required to sell the property.
One other thing that we discussed was possibly putting a wastewater system down there on the land.
Right, using that property
Right.
for a town wastewater.
Which-
Chrissy,
So
did you
would
wanna
that
talk
mean
about
the
that?
school-
My
Would the
neighbor?
school come down and then do it, or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But Chrissy can talk to that.
Do you mind, Chrissy, can we put you on the spot?
It's fine, it's fine. So we didn't do any test pits or anything yet, but we do have some money left over from our wastewater study. And I've already talked to Jessica, we could ask the state to reallocate that and allow us to do more test pits, to evaluate that property. I believe the soils are mapped as the same soil type that is in the spot that we have the existing proposal currently, which we have parents. So it's the same soil type, so it looks positive, but we would just have to do some test pits to confirm. And then we would have to look at, based on the test pits and the soil types, how much space would we need for a similar size system, and could we fit it, up, next to the playground, or, not have to take the building down. So that's all to be looked at.
But wastewater wise, how would you get the wastewater down?
Well, first of all, it's downhill.
Gravity,
But
yeah. I understand that, but how do you get it from uptown across the river down?
we crossed the bridge. The report that we've done so far is a liquid-only low-pressure sewer, so it's not actually a gravity sewer. It is a pressurized sewer, and we just cross on bridges.
But that's a bridge that was built back in 1930.
8.
Right, and it will be replaced, and they will work around it, or
Right.
it'll something will happen.
But again,
Hopefully replaced.
how's that get paid for?
Oh, well, that's the, that's the,
No, I get
that's
it.
the $64,000 price.
Does this thing, I mean, sorry, but I'm the neighbor of the elementary school, and what does this thing entail by putting this water, wastewater? What does it look like?
It's
Well, that's not something,
It's just a regular, it's your septic system. You would never know, looking at your lawn, that there's a septic system,
Okay.
right?
it's just underground, I mean,
It's
I live
underground.
right
It's just
there.
right,
So
right.
that's not something, and we don't.
We're so far away from that though, I think, again, just looking at these, it's really pie in the sky, so that, right.
I had a controversial topic.
Anybody else have any comments, questions?
Is right across the bridge, it's gonna flood some. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Yeah, it's just one of many possibilities.
Okay, but I'm saying, it's
theoretical, yeah.
every 15, 20 years, things disappear along that stretch.
I just got notification from the state about this.
Okay, please, guys, wait, we're wrapping up. Jessica, do you have anything to close out with?
So I just wanna, any other questions about the vote, like concrete, and yes,
I have
please.
one big comment, and I'm not sure how many people agree with this, but our priority is pre-kindergarten. And the other side of that whole age group is elderly population that is growing in this country. And my experience in my career and what have you, in Massachusetts, I have seen a place having elderly people reside, whatever there, and the children of
Together,
that,
right.
it's in Dedham, Massachusetts, and it's so great for the whole community. So as far as anything else, I think elderly and the pre-K, as far as I'm concerned, since I live next door to it.
Before we close,
Yeah.
can Tom, talk about this being on the website
Yeah, so-
and all the other information?
Thanks, guys.
Correct.
And explain that,
So other information meaning?
like all the documents that the school has, things like that. Don't you have those on the
I have a
website?
repository.
Repository,
I have a Google folder of all of the materials that we've collected. The different architectural and engineering reports.
Can you provide that to me, and then I will
Yes.
put it up on the website, and this recording of this meeting, if you wanna live through it all again tomorrow, I'm sure everybody does, will be on tomorrow afternoon. Austin said he would get that to me tomorrow, and then I'll put it up on the website, so it'll be long before the vote next Wednesday. Again, next Wednesday, 9 AM to 7 PM, right here in this room, is the election.
Yes, my last thought is, please come out to vote, and
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank you
attending,
for coming,
please
yes.
spread the word, make sure everybody you know votes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.